In this video, we're going to explore the learning outcomes for virtual reality. So, the first reaction we typically get with virtual reality is cool. That is, this is a Kirkpatrick Level 1 satisfaction of, wow, VR is neat. But cool isn't a learning outcome. It is typical as innovations arise that some of the first studies done are comparing the new innovation to the traditional approach. This particular study in 2011 was no exception, comparing virtual reality to traditional dissection. Both groups completed a 10-question quiz on the anatomy of the forearm. The VR group scored an average of 7.25 out of 10, and the traditional dissection group 6.87 out of 10. When these averages were compared, they resulted in a p-value of greater than 0.5. This no significant difference finding between an innovative format and traditional is actually quite typical when educational technology innovations are considered, as is the author's finding that the students liked the VR modality. These findings are so typical, in fact, over decades of education technology innovation research that there's a whole website dedicated to it called the nosignificantdifference.org. Here you can find every study under the sun that has ever compared a new edtech innovation to traditional learning. Given this, it's typical to conclude that we should not use the edtech innovations like virtual reality. But instead, what we should be doing is interpreting that virtual reality is actually a vehicle to deliver the content, and that it is the educational design that matters. Further to the point that the modality is just a vehicle for delivering content, virtual reality was compared to augmented reality to reviewing anatomy content on a tablet. All 59 participants completed a post-assessment that was knowledge-based and resulted in no significant difference. What the authors did find is also typical of virtual reality studies, that a minority of participants did experience physical symptoms of dizziness, headaches, or blurred vision. This indicates and becomes a rationale for deciding which modality to use over another. So while these studies illustrate it's important to pick the right modality for the job, they haven't yet answered which kinds of education design matter. In a great study coming from our colleagues in cognitive psychology, they asked college majors to complete a virtual reality experience on the biology of the human body. Half the group did segmented virtual reality, and the other did continuous. The segmented design required that learners do a short burst of virtual reality, then summarize what they had learned, followed by another short burst of virtual reality, and summarizing again what they had learned. The continuous group just experienced VR in one long block. The segmented VR arm is well designed. It follows the rule of 7, that is, that our working memory can only handle 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information at a time. It also follows the notion of consolidating what we've learned before continuing on. The study found that those in the segmented VR arm had a statistically significantly higher post-test score than the continuous VR group. However, there were no significant differences in interest, engagement, or motivation between the two arms of the study. What we can conclude across these studies is that it is evidence-based design that matters. For those interested in learning more about evidence-based design, there is an entire compendium by Mayer and his colleagues in cognitive psychology that outline all the principles of multimedia design. This work has also been summarized in articles as well as great videos on YouTube. But virtual reality, like every edtech innovation, has impact as well on administration, finance, and technical support. Having once upon a time led an IT department for a med school, I'm intimately aware of this impact, and I'm going to take a more slightly lighthearted look at this impact. Those less familiar with VR might think it is a bunch of people standing around with headsets, whereas the believer faculty might think that this is quite a high-tech simulated experience. Our finance teams may wonder where we're blowing away money, where our students might think it's an exciting video game experience. Whereas early adopters may see whole new possibilities for our curriculum, or at least lower cost opportunities for deliberate practice before expensive sim center events. However, the reality is adopting any new technology is an uphill curve before we are in a smooth space of easy use. In closing, virtual reality has the potential to offer powerful learning experiences, but as we saw, good design really matters. Any adoption plan for VR needs to be a long-term vision, as this is early days for the technology. Lastly, any VR we adopt, we need to evaluate learning outcomes. And once again, it's your turn. Please find a group of peers and answer question 2 on the worksheet.